So tell us a little bit about what the Crayon Project is. Where did you get the idea to start this?
Yeah, sure. So the Crayon Project is a nonprofit organization that my wife, Beth Ann, and I started a few years ago. And really, it was a family project that started off as a way to figure out how to kind of talk with our own children about some of the things that we were seeing in society, be it the George Floyd killing or other kind of actions kind of across the country that were causing us to have tough conversations. And at that point, my wife Beth Ann worked in the schools and said that everybody does those, self portraits in kindergarten, coloring themselves in the beginning of the year, a couple months in, and at year end. And some kids would hold up crayons and say, well, does this look like me? I guess this is close enough, sort of thing. And so we thought it was a really easy way to, kind of put multicultural art supplies into schools, just in our own local community. But from there, it really kind of grew into something much larger.
What message do you think it sends kids when they have access to crayons that match a whole variety of skin tones?
I think that, the conversations like in classrooms must be pretty interesting, right? As like teachers are having these conversations with kids and showing them that there's a more wide variety of different skin tone colors that are available to them. And it really kind of builds that, we may have some differences, but at the end of the day, building that comfort at a very early age with some of these children to say, I can pick up a crayon and whether I think it looks like me or it doesn't perfectly match, it's okay, right? That all of those different colors are in fact quite beautiful, and that the kids using those crayons, have that kind of self-empowerment to say, instead of saying like, I think this is good enough, it allows them to look at a different kind of, variety of colors that may be in that crayon package and say, well, time out. Like, I feel like this one actually does look like me, and kind of build that self-confidence, particularly at an early age. However, what we're seeing is that we're getting requests in from across the country from schools like in preschool age, with kids in preschool age all the way through high school. So the need is there in terms of, again, allowing children to be able to represent themselves as they see themselves in their artwork is a really powerful yet simple message that kids should have that like comfort as they're drawing a self-portrait of themselves or coloring pictures like of a family or something like that. But it has that kind of like ripple effect. And hopefully it's driving some of those deeper conversations outside of just kind of coloring the pages.
What kind of impact have you seen on the self-esteem it's had for the kids?
Yeah, so, we do get some stories back from some of the classrooms that, we've shipped our care packages of multicultural art supplies to. And what's really interesting is a lot of times it's photos from the teachers of the kids holding up the self-portrait that they have done, right? During COVID, like the early days of COVID, when masks were like mandatory in classrooms, the masks were covering the faces, but the portraits were still being held up. Now that some of those restrictions have been loosened, we see some of those portraits coming back and kids really just kind of smiling as they're holding up that self-portrait. Now, I'm sure they were smiling with the masks on as well, and we just weren't seeing it. But actually seeing a kid like holding up that self-portrait and taking like pride of ownership in the artwork that they've been able to do, but also in artwork that now represents them or represents their family or represents the community or culture that they're living in, is like really rewarding for us to see. But it's becoming more and more evident just as we see more of these photos coming back into us from either some of the classrooms or other nonprofit organizations that we've shipped our care packages to.
It's a subtle but really powerful message that it sends to kids that there's not a default skin color. There's a whole bunch of options because it's not like this is a skin tone and then everybody else, well, if you don't match that default, then you just figure it out. It's like, no, every one of these colors is just equally valid.
Yeah. And we found like the art supplies that we've been able to purchase from a variety of different manufacturers have come a long way since I was in school, right? I mean, when we were in school as kids, there was peach, there was brown, and there was black. And that was really it, right? And I think that it's kind of nice to see some of these manufacturers kind of looking and saying, well, hold on a second, like how difficult is it to kind of provide a little bit more of a variety of some of those skin tone colors to, again, allow the kids to say, maybe it's not that perfect match, but if that's what the kid is associating themselves as looking like or feeling like, then they should be able to have that comfort level and say, it's not just peach anymore. It's not just black anymore. It's a shade, and allow them to have, again, that comfort as they're kind of going through that art project.
When you launched this project, it took off a lot faster than you expected, right? How did that happen? And how did you manage this influx of attention and requests that you were getting?
Yeah, so it started really as a family project at our dining room table, trying to supply our own local school district with some of these packages of multicultural art supplies. And then, shared on social media and said, hey, if anybody would like to chip in. And then it kind of just started spiraling from there, somewhat out of control. But I think we've done a pretty good job at building some control around it, hopefully. So we had no aspirations that we would be filling out paperwork to become a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have done that. We've had no aspirations that we were filling out grant applications with either local businesses or local banks to try to raise additional funds. We continue to do that. It very much is still a family project. It's something that our kids have now embraced. We have a pretty good assembly line at the kitchen table where we're filling boxes of, our care packages with boxes of crayons. Once we started kind of in the local community, we had friends and family saying, hey, like, I'd like to do something like this in our town. How can we help? Could you ship a care package to this town if I donate some dollars? And then it just kind of grew and grew and grew. One of the kind of unique stories I think we have is we were sharing on Twitter. We created a couple of different social media accounts. We shared on Twitter, and an individual who was mayor of in Puerto Rico retweeted it. We shipped a care package to a school in Puerto Rico, kind of grew, from there. And then some other kind of people started sharing it more and more. So, that compounding effect of just kind of heightened visibility, heightened awareness on different social media channels really kind of helped, kind of grow it from being that kind of small, local project into something that certainly grew much larger.
One of the things that I really love about your social media is like you tell stories of the impact that it's happening on for the teachers, for the kids. You don't really focus on you guys. And that's really a big thing for us. I mean, because a lot of times when people create these social media accounts for their companies, they're talking about their employees of the month, they're talking about the barbecues they went to, but it doesn't provide value for their audience in the sense of like they're not getting an idea of the journey that the customers are having with their business. And like for you guys, that has been, it seems like it's intentional with your social media and it's grown and it's killing it right now. Was that with intention, or is that something that just organically happened?
I'd say it somewhat organically happened, but it kind of grew out of the fact that as we were getting requests for care packages in, the stories that were being shared with us were things that we wanted to share with other people, right? So we had teachers filling out applications, and we still have teachers to this day filling out applications. We have quite a backlog of requests right now, but teachers are saying like, how will you use these multicultural art supplies in your classroom? Explain to us like how your community, how your community is kind of structured and what your community is like. The stories that come into us are things that need to be shared, right? So we have teachers that tell us we don't have art supplies, period. Not we don't have multicultural art supplies. It's we do not have funding for art supplies, period. Right. And so some of those stories are like, we look at it and it's like, gosh, we wish we could fill every single one of these requests that come in, which is impossible for us to do. But again, those stories, when teachers are taking the time to like put their energy and invest their time into telling us like why they think that they should receive one of these care packages from us, is something that needs to be shared. And then when you see, I mean, again, those kids holding up the pictures, or stories of there was a school that burned down, and somebody reached out and said, would you be able to help out this school district as they move to a new school? I said, of course. Like, how could we not want to do that and share the information about like how people can help there? So it definitely was like somewhat organic in terms of like, again, how we wanted to tackle that social media strategy. But it also has become really easy with the volume of different stories that are coming in that we're like, gosh, that more people need to hear this story. More people need their eyes on like what teachers are running into or what other nonprofit organizations are running into on a daily basis. Because oftentimes we may just kind of go through the motions. We get the request from your own school and it says we need Kleenex at the beginning of the year, we need hand sanitizer, maybe a couple scissors, but it's a much broader issue and much broader topic that I don't think maybe gets, rises to the surface in all discussions at all times. So that's kind of our mission in charge from a messaging perspective on social media.
Oh, I love that. It's like you're just staying on mission. It's like, it's not about us. It's about the teachers. It's about the students that we're impacting. Let's keep the focus there. Let's stay on our mission instead of just getting caught up in all this other stuff. That's not why we formed this organization to begin with. That is just what we preach here. Like, focus on your why, stick to what it is that that you created this for. Don't focus on yourself, but focus on the people that you're impacting. I love that, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, and again, when teachers are spending that time, like this is not like, their, we'll call it 9 to 5 sort of job, right? They're going above and beyond, sourcing like us, sourcing other organizations, like filling out applications and like saying, and a lot of teachers will tell us like, I've already chipped in $200 out of my own pocket for some art supplies. Or I've bought some like, multicultural art supplies for my classroom, but I couldn't provide every kid in the classroom with like, a box. Is there something that you can help supplement? Like, again, that's where it kind of is up to us to say, like, how do we get that message out just more broadly to say, like, yes, like these are small, like incremental wins that are, again, are going to have a nice compounding effect, kind of not just within that classroom, but hopefully within like larger communities.